Ever been short on Golden Eagles? That will no longer be a problem. With the Golden Eagle app available on Android in the Play Store, you can complete simple tasks, surveys, and even play games to earn thousands of free Golden Eagles at no cost to you. I've linked the app in the description below. After you download, use my code on the screen in order to start off with an additional 10 Golden Eagles. This is the simplest and easiest way to earn free Golden Eagles so that you can get that premium vehicle and premium time that you've been after. Remember, use the code on the screen after you download using the link below. Hey everyone, Tankenstein here. In this video, I'll be going over the top 5 premium planes for beginners in War Thunder. There are a ton of premium planes in War Thunder, and in order to make this list, I chose from all of the 4.3 or so BR and below planes that you can purchase with Golden Eagles. So no purely pack or marketplace vehicles are on this list. Not that it would change anything at all. Because of this, both console and PC players can benefit from this video. Through the dozens upon dozens of vehicles I could choose from, I picked the best 5 planes at 4.3 BR and below that are both beginner friendly and very powerful. I also made sure that they are relatively inexpensive as well, costing each under 2,500 GE, with most of them actually being closer to 1,000 GE. And for the cherry on top, the planes on this list fill numerous roles, which means that there are planes in this video for every playstyle. That said, I come up with tons of guides, tips and tricks videos, and so forth, so please subscribe as that would mean the world to me. Also, I've linked my beginner's guide to War Thunder down below in the pinned comment, as well as my top 10 tips and tricks for tanks, and also my top 5 premium tanks for beginners video as well, so please definitely check all those out. That said, let's get into the video. So with all of that out of the way, let's get into number 5, and for number 5 we have the KI-102. It currently sits at 3.7 BR and rank 2 in the Japanese air tech tree, and only costs around 1,300 GE, or around $8 to $9 USD. This is an excellent overall fighter that combines many of the strengths of Japanese planes and fixes some of the weaknesses. For example, though it is not as agile as many similar BR Japanese planes, it is faster, has a better rate of climb, has a much better armament and far more ammunition, and can perform halfway decent close air support in a pinch. In that regard, this plane can do it all, and it's not like it sacrifices much agility either. The only big downside of this plane, aside from it being rank 2 instead of rank 3, is that, like most other Japanese propeller planes, it lacks any real armor, and is of light construction, making this an easy plane to both severely damage or kill outright. In addition, it stiffens up tremendously when moving at beyond 650 kilometers per hour, which is not all that difficult to reach considering the rate of climb on this plane and the fact that you'll probably engage in steep dives fairly often. This said, it has excellent climbing performance for its BR. This is in part due to the turbocharger that is the signature difference between a regular KI-100 and the KI-102. Additionally, as mentioned before, it has an excellent armament consisting of 2 20mm cannons and 2 12.7mm HMGs, each with 500 rounds, which is much more than most Japanese planes carry. And finally, if you like close air support, it can carry up to 2 250 kilogram bombs, which is excellent for a Japanese plane around this BR, and actually is equal to around 1,000 pounds of bombs, which isn't even halfway bad considering every nation around this BR. When spotting grouped up vehicles in ground battles, you can get numerous kills very easily with this very decent payload. Following this, it can perform excellent air cover after dropping the bombs. Between its overall performance, rare multi-role capability in the Japanese air tech tree around this BR, and the fact that it's fairly inexpensive, what's not to love about the KI-102? For the number 4 spot on this list, we have the XP50. The XP50 currently sits in rank 3 at 4.0 BR in RB in the American Air Tech Tree, and currently costs 1,600 GE, or around $10 USD. To put how good this plane is succinctly, if I made a list going over just interceptors alone, this plane would likely be in the top 3, with many people arguing for number 2 or even number 1 on that list. The XP50 is an excellent plane in many ways, and the only reason why it sits as low as 4.0 BR is because it is purely a specialized interceptor slash dogfighter with the ability to do little else. Essentially, at the lowest BR that it sits, it can move at 680 kilometers per hour in air RB, has a rate of climb of 20 meters per second, which is equivalent to the Me-262 jet fighter, has an excellent burst mass of nearly 4 kilograms per second, and has great agility that can beat nearly all enemies that it will fight outside of possibly Japanese planes. Even though it has all of that speed plus the high rate of climb, it has an interceptor spawn, which means that it spawns in the air and moving at speed, albeit at only a few hundred meters above the allied base. It suffers, however, in that it does not perform close air support all too well, outside of destroying either lightly armored vehicles, open top vehicles, or providing air cover. It also does not have WEP, but the XP50 is already fast enough without it. Additionally, its biggest downfall in both air RB and AB is its lack of 20mm ammo, as it only has 120 rounds between its two 20mm cannons, which gives it only 6 seconds of burst mass before only having two 50 cals. Don't get me wrong, the 50 cals are good, but you need more than two typically, especially as an interceptor, and doubly so beyond 3.0 BR. You'll get kills, but they won't necessarily be quick. Either way, if you're a huge fan of just playing air RP and love powerful interceptors that can also climb, then the XP50 is for you. After years of owning it, this is still one of my favorite premium purchases in all of War Thunder. In my number 3 spot is a plane that fills pretty much the same role as the XP50, but dials it up to 11. I, of course, am talking about the TA-154 Mosquito, the German 4.3 BR, rank 3 interceptor/fighter that currently costs 1,450 GE, or around $10 USD. The TA-154 also has an interceptor spawn and a high top speed of 659 kilometers per hour. Yes, it is heavier, a touch slower, and has a slightly lower rate of climb than the aforementioned XP50. Those slight disadvantages are pushed by the wayside when you realize that at 4.3 BR, the TA-154 has a 9.17 kilogram per second of burst mass between its two 20mm cannons and two 30mm MK108 cannons, with the 30mm cannons having 220 rounds in total and the two 20mm cannons having 400 rounds in total between the cannons. This variety of cannons alone not only makes the TA-154 especially dangerous, but it allows one to pick and choose how they want to attack the enemy. The 30mm cannons, for example, are amazing for destroying bombers and heavier fighters, whereas the 20mm cannons are great for destroying more nimble fighters, as they have a much higher rate of fire and muzzle velocity. Regardless, most people will probably just use the 20 and 30mm cannons simultaneously, which is also incredibly effective. Due to its devastating armament and still great maneuverability, speed, and rate of climb, the TA-154 may well be the apex predator insofar as interceptors at 4.3 BR and below are concerned, as it really doesn't have a glaring weakness, at least not in air battles. In ground battles, as with the XP50, you'll be limited to destroying lightly armored ground units or providing air cover, as the TA-154 lacks any secondary ordnance. If this doesn't bother you, then I would strongly encourage you to purchase the TA-154. It may well be my favorite plane in War Thunder, and if not, the German Mosquito is certainly a top 5 pick. And now for number 2, and this is a plane that a lot of people love and a lot of people would probably agree with me on, we have the BTD-1. This is an American plane that is currently listed as a bomber and sits at rank 3 and 4.0 BR, costing a total of 1,750 GE, or around $10 or $11 USD. What makes this plane so special is that, outside of its armament, it's currently classified in-game as a torpedo bomber, which gives it the same air spawn as bombers, which is an amazing advantage for a plane like this, even though it does not, of course, have a bomb sight, so dropping bombs accurately from high altitudes is very difficult, unless playing AB. Now, while it is too heavy to be agile like a fighter, it still carries a host of powerful armaments and can effectively help to not only grind through rank 4 with ease, but the BTD-1 can also assist players in getting used to several different types of planes and game styles. For example, this is both a base bomber and a torpedo plane, which is not all too common, especially among single-engine aircraft. Additionally, it is incredibly durable, lending to being a great bomber hunter, at least initially in a match. In fact, one of the most common and effective strategies in air RB when using the BTD is as a bomber hunter, due to its high armament and spawn location. Likely, the main selling point of this beast, however, is the ability to carry ordnance, carrying a maximum of 2,000 pounds of bombs in a bomb bay, or up to two 2,000-pound torpedoes externally. While it does not have enough bomb capacity to destroy an enemy base, it will still mostly destroy one, which will still grant you a ton of SL and RP, especially if you're able to destroy enemy tanks or planes with its cannons thereafter. Can also equip naval mines, which are its strongest ordnance overall, which makes this plane a must-have for naval players. All in all, however, the BTD-1 is one of the few planes that can pretty much play any role against any type of vehicle in-game and do it fairly well, whether you're in an air match, ground match, or naval. This plane can do it all and is incredibly inexpensive for what you get. And now, before we get to the number 1 spot on this list, as always, I've got my honorable mentions, and this is for both fighters and bombers, because I noticed that most of my planes on this list thus far have been fighters or at best multi-role. So for number 1, we have Flagel's BF-109A. It's a really good and cheap introduction to true dogfighting mechanics in War Thunder, and is one of the lowest BR monoplane fighters in game. Plus, it's extremely inexpensive and is a unique variant of the BF-109 currently in game. Plus, it has an interesting history. It's got good stats for a 1.3 PR plane, though it only has 2 LMGs and 1,000 rounds in total, which makes for an incredibly underwhelming offensive punch. For my second honorable mention when it comes to fighters, we have the Morco Moraine or the Fokker DXXI. Now, these are both excellent choices for grinding the Swedish tech tree for cheap. The Fokker is for those that prefer heavier armament and better agility at the cost of speed, whereas the Moraine is better for those that like overall speed, rate of climb, and performance over firepower. After this, we have the I-153P, which is a Russian plane. It's a 2.7 BR rank 2 biplane. It has a powerful 20mm cannon armament, great agility. It's fairly inexpensive at under 1,000 GE and can perform light close air support. Its only real downside is that it has poor top speed, largely due to its weak engine and biplane design. After this, we have one of my favorites, the American BF-109 F4. This is just an amazing fighter overall. I love me some BF-109s, regardless of the variant. The F4 is, in my opinion, probably the most balanced relative to BR, and this one is no exception. The only downside is that you cannot carry secondary ordnance, but if you're looking for an extremely balanced plane on the cheap, the BF-109 F4 for the Americans is the way to go. And now let's just go over the honorable mentions for bombers, and first and foremost, you know I was going to have it, the BV-238. This is for those that want a proper bomber. It can carry up to 2,250 kilogram bombs, which if I'm not mistaken, like 2 or 3 can actually destroy a base. So this can more or less level the entire enemy team if it goes unobstructed. It's a huge, slow target, however, with decent enough cannons, not amazing defensive armament, but it can definitely make do. This is an incredibly powerful plane, but again, it is huge and is a very, very big target, and you will be beset by enemy players very, very quickly, very, very often when flying this plane. Next up, we have the B-25J-30 for the Russians. This is pretty much just the B-25J that the Americans have, except for the Russians, with slightly higher amounts of armor. Now, this is a bomber, so it does get the bomber air spawn, plus it gets an offensive armament of 6 50 cal HMGs, which is really, really nice and will assist greatly when going after ground targets or air targets that are attacking you. Additionally, though it arguably will not matter all too much, it does have 3 500 kilogram Russian bombs, which is slightly more explosive filler than the 3 1,000 pound American bombs. You're getting around 25, give or take, kilograms of explosive filler more with the Russian B-25 than you would with the American B-25, both at their respective max payloads. So if nothing else, one could argue that this is a slightly improved version just for that alone, but again, I don't really think it'll make too much of a difference, but of course it is there. And now finally, we have the B-10B. This is only 400 GE. It's an American rank 1 bomber. Not all too great, but it is very cheap, very fun, will get you consistent RP and SL and help you grind through rank 2 in the American air tech tree. And finally, for the number 1 spot on this list, the moment you've all been waiting for. For number 1, I choose the premium P-47s. So really, this isn't any one particular plane, but just to kind of attach a face to this, I'll say the Thunderbolt Mark 1 for Great Britain, but really you could say any premium P-47 could go in this spot, including the P-47 for the Germans, the USSR, or for the French, or any Thunderbolt that I may have either not mentioned or will come to War Thunder in the future. Again, granted, that is a premium. In short, you really can't go wrong with a P-47. It's a great all-arounder and can pretty much do anything that you ask. Specifically, just because I mentioned it first, the Thunderbolt Mark 1 is currently a 4.0 BR rank 3 fighter for Great Britain that costs only 1,600 GE, or give or take around $10 USD. Though the other premium P-47s around this BR vary slightly in both price and BR placement. Either way, these planes are amazing for getting tons of RP and SL, all while providing a fairly balanced style of gameplay for every skill level of player, whether you're a beginner or a veteran, and for every playstyle. You can't go wrong with the P-47. It is extremely durable and has a great 850 cal HMG primary armament with 3,400 rounds in total. Its secondary armament is awesome as well, with up to 2,500 pounds of bombs with the Thunderbolt Mark 1 and around 1,250 kilograms of bombs with the Soviet P-47, which equals around 2,750 pounds of bombs, again with the Soviet version. Now, this version does cost a touch more and sits at 0.3 BR higher than the Thunderbolt, so take that in mind, whereas the German P-47, regardless of the variant, does not come with the ability to equip bombs. Regardless, between their speed, typical ability to carry excellent secondary armament, great boom and zoom capability, and even pretty good dogfighting capability if you're fighting the right opponents, the P-47 can essentially do it all. In fact, it's such a good all-arounder that people, myself included, will oftentimes take a 4.0-ish BR P-47 regardless of nation and use it for close air support in matches that are substantially higher in BR, because they nearly all have a great bomb carrying capability, they have good HMGs that can wreck lightly armored ground vehicles, and can provide excellent air cover. The P-47, regardless of your chosen variant, is the quintessential multi-role prop plane. Definitely recommend it, especially for that 1600 GE Thunderbolt Mark I. That said, thank you all so much for watching. As always, please like, comment, subscribe. This video was a little bit longer than my other video when it came to the premium tanks for beginners, but I felt like there is a little bit more to go in depth with when it comes to planes, being that there's just so much more, I guess you could say, in terms of capability when it comes to planes than there are tanks. Tanks are pretty much cannon, and then the amount of armor is light, medium, or heavy, and that's pretty much it, whereas planes can do way more, and they're meant for a whole host more of things. So again, I wanted to cover every base in this and give everyone a plane that they could play if you're a beginner or just want a cheap plane. That being said though, again, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all on the other side. Take care, everyone.